Now for the track guide. For turn 1, we're gonna use this concrete on the left as a turning point. We want to turn the car but not brake at this point while turning, so it's very important to throw the car into the corner to use the downforce of the car and then brake while you're approaching the curb. So at this point we're on the brakes and it's gonna be a long trail braking zone. If we're gonna make a checkpoint list for this corner, turn 1 and turn 2, it will be first this curb here, then trailing to the curb on the left. You want to put your left tires on it so it will open up a lot the next corner, while still maintaining the brakes, as you can see here in the trail brake. Fourth gear, still trailing at the curb, and then as quickly as we can we're gonna be back on throttle. So it's all about carrying the speed into this part and about braking the least amount that we can do. So we're trailing a lot but in the lower 25-30 percentages, and then when we're back on this curb we're gonna try to go as quickly as we can to 100% throttle while using this curb. In this lap I had some hesitation around here, but ideally you want this build up to be to 100% throttle, that you're gonna know that you're using the most of this complex of corners. For the next corner you're gonna turn in earlier than you think, because what you want is to have your car on this curb, right? Like this. This will open up this corner a lot more, and in this corner you have to brake. Because this car can carry a lot of speed, it's gonna be pretty difficult to do this corner without braking, without a lift that you can do in other cars as F4 and F3, but braking a lot more than other low-powered cars, and then quickly be back on throttle, because what you want is on this curb to already build up the throttle. It's gonna be quite difficult to build it up to 100%. But your goal in terms of positioning the car would be to have the car on the left side, but not far left to the curb, but let's say 3/3 of the road to the left. Since this corner you don't need to over prepare it, again slight tap on the brakes and then building up to 100% throttle. It's important to have this 100% throttle reach around here, so in case you're doing with the throttle something like a progressive hold of 60, 70, 80%, try to give it 100 and then drop it while trail braking again and again to get more rotation, and then positioning the car far to the right so we can open up this. This won't be a flat out corner, so it's gonna require a small lift like I did here, but ideally you want to minimize this lift. So the smaller than you can be, then the more time you're gonna gain. For the next corners, braking point and turning point is the 50-meter board. Slightly past it, you're gonna turn. And you really need to apex as closely as you can to this curb. Otherwise, you will have a tough exit. Because if you put your car more to the left on this curb, it will bottom out and you won't be able to turn the car. So basically you're gonna go into the gravel. So you really need to turn in a lot more to cut this curb and then immediately be back on throttle, because the car is gonna be loose here because you're braking and turning at the same time, so your rear is loose. By applying this throttle early, you're gonna balance the car in the rears and ultimately you have a better balance. So the focus should be here on throttle instead of the brakes, because yes, the brake is important to turn and trail, but it's more important to have this throttle application to carry the speed and to balance the car. This will apply for next corner as well. I'm trying to open up as much as possible, and I have the halo, the antenna of the halo, as close as I can to the white line. This is the limit, otherwise you'll bottom out. And by trailing and by apexing around the white line, just using a bit of curb, in third gear, with the throttle on at the apex, this should be your focus point, to have the throttle at the apex around here. If it's gonna be late around here, you're gonna lose time. If it's gonna be too early, you're probably gonna go wide. It's important here to not go wide with this car because it will bottom out. So this is exactly what you should be using, a bit more to the left, and the car will bottom out. So what I'm using as a reference, I'm aligning this antenna of the halo with the white line to have it on the right side of the white line. In the hairpin, it's important to have a good entry because what you want to have, it's a straight line braking. So you want to brake as straight as you can with your steering wheel to maximize the straight line efficiency of the brakes. In my case, as you can notice, I have a little bit of steering angle. You want to minimize this, and you minimize it by the approach that you have. So what would have been even better is to turn in a bit later than this. So in that way, my steering wheel would have been a little bit straight. I'm trying to straighten up the wheel. That's the first thing that I do after the car is positioned on the white line with the right tires. And I'm picking 100% for a short amount of time, just because you have a lot of downforce and you can do that to slow the car down even faster. But I go into the first gear because I was not confident. I'm sure the second gear is gonna be faster. So if you're gonna try it, try with second gear. It will be just half a tenth faster. Trailing, and then connecting the brakes with the throttle. It's gonna take some time to build it up. And coming up into spoon, this is the braking point, the concrete on the right, braking point and the turning point. You want to brake slightly past it to gain more speed. This is the first checkpoint, so you want to trail your brakes into this curb. Then be back immediately on throttle. If you can reach 100% throttle, you're gonna gain time. In this case, I was a bit afraid of going wide, but as you can see, I left some space here. So you can put your right tires onto this curb and it will be okay. When you're practicing, try to hit 100% throttle here, not 90 like I do in this example. It will be faster. Immediately after you're reaching this curb, you should be back again on brakes and trailing to brakes and trailing to rotate the car. So the whole point of this brake here is to make the front tires point to this curb, and whenever you're at this curb, you can be back on throttle, building up, because it's not gonna be easy to have it instantly to 100%, and using all the space on the exit. Now finally, the last corner, braking point is in between 100 and this banner board, but I'm looking more at 100s, and as you can see here, I brake a bit earlier than I would. I'm picking 100 and then I'm dropping it. And you can try to brake a bit later. The car will be capable of braking just a tiny bit later. But what you should focus is cutting this curb on the right. If you're gonna cut this curb, you're gonna have a great time, because right now look at the antenna where it is. You really want to have a good exit here. So the whole point of this chicane is to cut this a lot so that the car will be positioned in a good way for you to take this corner and carry a lot more speed than not doing it. And in short, that's a lap of Suzuka in Super Formula. I wish you a great week ahead, and I'll see you on the next one.